Hi, everyone. Welcome to Turning Point. I'm your host, Blaine Bertsch, co-founder and CEO at Dryrun, where we will help you look into the future of your cash flow, model scenarios, and understand exactly where your business is headed. And joining me today, I'm super excited, longtime friend, Sam Jenkins, CEO at Punchcard Systems. And it's really funny because, before we got on the show here, I said, I got to finally hit the record button because Sam and I talked for about 15, 20 minutes about really interesting stuff. And I'm like, we better start recording this stuff. So I'm so excited to have you on the show, Sam.
Oh, thanks for the invite. I mean, you're right. Our conversations have always veered into the interesting. And I think being fellow entrepreneurs, I've taken a lot of, I've gotten a lot of strength from the journey that you've been on in terms of building a really great product for really great customers.
And I've followed your journey for years and just have seen you build a really incredible business and with the types of things you do, but also the sort of culture of the business, who you serve, everything I just find really, really fascinating. But before we dive into Punchcard Systems, I want to go actually back to, because I know there's a lot leading up to how you got there. How did you get started as an entrepreneur? Where was your first, taste of it?
Well, I mean, it goes way back, like way back. I started a lawn mowing business a long time ago, but that probably wasn't my first, or that wasn't my first foray into tech entrepreneurship. Back in '99, I was working for a small startup that became a larger startup, and I saw the pace at which the owners of the business, the founders of the business at which they worked, and I was so inspired. I started my own web design agency back in year 2000. Maybe not the best time to be starting a business at the end of the tech bubble, but we ran that for a couple of years. And to be fair, I learned so much working with organizations at the forefront of web technologies, right? I mean, this was not Web 2.0. This was the early days of the web, and I mean, it was a fantastic time. It was a really wonderful experience. I took a pause from entrepreneurship for about 10 years, finished my university degree, worked for a couple of other really incredible businesses, and then was back in 2012 when my business partner and I, we decided that now was a good time, and we opted to build a product. This was before Punchcard being a services organization or an agency, but our first product was in the healthcare space. We built a platform called WellNext. We had we'll call it a theory or perhaps a bit of a gamble that we thought organizations were going to invest a little bit more in the employee experience, specifically around health and wellness. And so we built an analytics platform to help organizations be able to do that, looking at insurance data, looking at wellness and health information, as well as productivity and employee performance data. That was probably one of my first kind of really key learnings in terms of higher stakes entrepreneurship, that you can build a great product for an incredible customer base, but you can mistime the market. And we were early, 8 years before the pandemic, and then we started really understanding the value of employee wellness. So we learned a little bit there, but it was in 2012 in 2015, 2016 when we started licking our wounds from that first venture. But realized that we really loved building product. We loved building digital product. And that's where Punchcard got its genesis. And I mean, it's been 9 years. We have an incredible team, like you pointed out. There's 46 folks that call Punchcard home today. They live in 15 different cities. And I would say the biggest and best investment that we've made is in the culture here at Punchcard. That's what creates the big difference.
And it's I'm going to go back to that because it's the leap that I'm kind of interested in, the leap from I remember web design in 2000, and I do want to dive into a little bit of that timing, because timing is one thing that entrepreneurs oftentimes really can't control, but it is like one of the most defining things for business. But from the leap from sort of web design to what you're doing with WellNext, which is a very today thing, maybe not like you said, a 2012 thing. I remember websites in 2000, and to think about how quickly, you know, we've both been around long enough to know this actually is quick. How quickly it moved from, um, you know, we were still, I think, in dial-up in 2000. Like people and businesses were using dial-up. Like the connection was so slow.
Absolutely.
Animated GIFs were like bleeding edge. Um, I remember when Flash came out, it was like just the most amazing thing on the planet. All the stuff you could do is Flash and action script and everything. And looking back now, it's actually kind of hilarious. Like it was so sort of superficial and simple, right? Like, but people were paying for this. People were businesses were already realizing, you know, I think we should probably be on the web, right?
You know, you hit a nail on the head there. Like there was a lot of, we'll call it interstitial technologies that became really, really common or popularized, right? Like, you know, Flash. I remember we were working a project one time and a customer wanted lots of stuff moving around and we were using dynamic HTML. And if anybody who watched the show remembers DHTML, that was all the rage for about 6 minutes. We were dealing in a bit of a Wild West, right? I mean, at the early stages where there wasn't nearly as much standardization as today. You know, even if you think about the way the web is working today with a number of really common CMSs, everything is so much more templated. In fact, I mean, we're on a podcast. I know you're not necessarily sponsored by Squarespace, but I mean, if you listen to any podcast, you hear lots about Squarespace. Then the nature of, or the commercialization, I think, of web content and web development, you know, we're at the far end of that spectrum. But back in those early days of the year 2000 or in the 2000s, the reason or the way that I got into it was working for the startup that I was, small group, and somebody said, well, we need a website. Can somebody figure out how to build the website? And so that kind of fell on me as the maybe the most junior person in the room. And I'm so grateful actually that I had that early experience to be able to take some risks, learn some things, and work along a pathway of mastery that has set up an entire career of, you know, taking risks and building product. Yeah, a lot of gratitude, I think, for those early days, even though there's a lot more unknowns when it came to the technology.
Yeah. And I want to flip it on its head a little bit too, because going along with that, starting a business, like I literally, I left my job, my very first and only job, in, I think it was the end of 1999, around 2000, and started, that was like 1999 was when I started my first little agency, and then kind of leapt out on my own. And thinking back that long, I remember some of the parts about the technology because they're just kind of funny. But the stuff that has an impact on me today was, oh my God, what is business and how do I sell and how do I do this, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I want to sort of dig into that because that's the first thing I was obsessed with is I got to get a customer.
Yeah.
And then I got to get another one and another one. And then there's a certain point where it's like, oh my God, we got to put through a lot of money every week just to pay the bills. How did you kind of go about on the business side, like getting that first customer and learning the business side?
You know, you bring up a really good point around that customer development journey. I think for all of us who, you know, are building an organization, this highlights the multi-hat problem that we all get to wear. And it doesn't matter if I'm talking about Punchcard or Wellnext or the early days when we were building Divergent. I get to wear so many hats. And I say that, you know, actually with both pride and excitement, but probably the most important hat that I get to wear is customer advocate and salesperson. Business development is an everyday thing. And so the brand that we've built both in our organization today and in previous organizations is more than just the organization. It is the people working in the organization. It is the relationships that we build with the folks that we work with as well. If I think about what has made Punchcard as successful as it has today, and we're still, you know, early on our trajectory, I would say it is the investment that we've made in building long-term customer relationships that has turned into opportunities for recurring sales, and certainly referrals. But if I go back to the very beginning, there's a trust that our early and first customers have to take in us, right? They're taking a gamble on a new organization. And so as an entrepreneur, as the business owner, I remember putting everything that I could into making sure that we could maintain that relationship, that we wouldn't fail, that the risk that our customers were taking on us was justified. Our first customer at Punchcard was an industrial services company, really wonderful business. They've grown and scaled over the course of our relationship with them. But Eston and I spent a lot of late nights trying to figure out how we could over deliver for them and how we could add value. And I remember, there's a lot of 2 a.m.s where we're burning midnight oil. And, at the early stages of building an organization, you have a little bit more energy to be able to do that. As we've scaled the organization up, we have more people, more permutations, I think, of impact. Now it's not so much how many different hats am I going to wear. It's am I wearing the right hat at the right time, and am I empowering enough people on our team to be able to get things over the line for our customers?
It's fascinating how this is the journey that entrepreneurs go through, right? Like you're when you're starting, it's like, we got to get a sale. And exactly like you were talking, that's how we've built businesses, is built on relationships. People, B2B, we sell to businesses, right? But it's a business doesn't buy from us. A person buys from us. It's a person in a business that we're solving a problem for. And we, it's amazing how those relationships are so important, and you learn about that on the sales side. But it's interesting how you were talking about it. It's like, then it turns to relationships in your staff and your team, and how do you grow, and how do you motivate, and how do you build a culture that is enduring, right? And it's a challenge. And of course, the more people, oftentimes the more challenging, right?
Yeah. And so, you bring up a really interesting quandary, right? Because the most complex part of our organization, and I can only speak through the lens of my experience, but the most complex part of our organization is not the software we build. We build complex software, and as AI is becoming more and more a part of everybody's world of work, it's becoming more and more complex, for sure. But the most complicated part of how we work is the people. Relationships are so unique. Everybody's competencies are so different. People show up differently every single day based on so many factors that are outside the workplace. The amount of empathy I think that we need as leaders in organizations, and I think that empathy needs to stretch to not only the people who work in the business, but also our customers. People are coming to us with a very specific problem, and it is how we use empathy to be able to deal with those problems. That's how we create value together. And it doesn't matter if you're building a point solution as a product, or you're an agency where you can do anything for anybody. It really is about going across that line, using empathy to be able to create connections with other people. I'm really proud of our team. It's something that I didn't realize that I could be as proud as I am about it. Because when we started the organization, when we started the Punchcard experiment, we'll call it, it really was, well, we build software. And then as that evolved, it's like, well, actually, no, we solve problems, we build ideas. But now I've come to the realization that actually we build teams. And I think this is actually true in every organization. As you scale, you come to the realization that people are the most important part of the manufacturing process. And we need to make sure that we invest as much as we can to be able to build the best teams that we can afford. We can't always afford the top paying or the person that wants the most amount of money. So we need to make sure that we're actually building teams that are formed of people that work really well together.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's an art as much as
Yeah.
it is a science. That I feel like maybe I'm at the bottom of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where I now know that there's so much to learn about building really great teams and really great team-based relationships.
Yeah. And that's a massive, it's such a massive challenge. It's amazing how many times I'm talking with founders and we start talking about, um, how important great people are on your team, and sometimes how tricky it is to find them and recognize them. And each organization, I think, has their own little way of doing that. But what are some of the things that you do to help recognize, like, this is someone that I may want to sort of introduce to the team and see how they work, or like how do you guys do that? Because the bigger the team gets, the harder it is to find that mix, right?
That's a brilliant question, because I well, I mean, let's say onboarding an employee starts long before day one of them joining the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as an organization, we've invested quite heavily in our onboarding processes, right? We want people to be to develop a understanding or an appreciation of the core values that we live or the vision we're trying to achieve. But to your point, it starts with that first interaction and identifying the talent that fits, as opposed to just somebody who can deliver on a workload, is very, very different.
Yeah.
So when we build a team, as I mentioned, I think we exist to build teams. So when we're forming a product development trio, we'll call it, that's made up of a developer or developer talent, product management talent, UX talent. It's also supported through delivery and project management. There's a lot of permutations of competency that make up a successful outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And so first of all, we know we need to identify somebody who has really great talent when it comes to the work we do. Okay, that's almost easy.
Yeah.
I don't say easy; it's almost easy, right? We get to use things like education or portfolios or competency or looking into somebody's Git. There's lots of tools that we can use to be able to understand, can somebody do the job. The hard part, though, is identifying, can somebody do the job with the people that they're going to work with? And
Yes.
so we do a lot of work in terms of cultural understanding. So I may interview somebody, or folks on our team may interview as a hiring manager, but we're also making sure that all parts of our organization are participating in the interview process, so that we can get a gauge of, is this person going to add to the culture that we are building? Are they going to form a part of the team and help elevate everybody? As they say, high tide rises all boats.
Yeah.
And if I look back, I mean, I can look back for the entire history of the organization, but if I look back at this last year, we've done an amazing job of identifying people who both bring incredible talent and bring incredible culture to our organization.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that quite well, because we're really, really focused on it, but also we're very intentional about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we also do a very good job of trying to scout talent. And this is, finding young talent who, maybe they're a diamond in the rough, but they have the opportunity to be able to shine within our organization, or people who are looking for a different type of challenge. Because that is part of the benefit, I think, of our organization, is that our teams get to tackle so many different types of problems, so many different types of challenges. And as they say, steel sharpens steel. Really great people working with really great people create really great opportunities.
Yeah. It's it's something that I've learned, especially over the last couple of years, as we went through COVID and everything. My team's always been remote. Like, that's just how we built this business, which used to be weird and now it's kind of normal, right?
Hmm.
But I totally agree with you. There's this sort of prereq. It's like, yeah, they have to have the chops, like they have to have the skill in the area we need them. But that's just the check mark in the box. Then the hard part becomes, how will they be as a culture fit at working in the team? But also, for us being remote, we also know we need people that have just a ton of get up and go, that are very motivated, driven, and have this off the charts sort of give a shit. Like they don't need to be, they have to be able to just pick it up and want to do it and drive forward and work in the team. So you're always trying to figure out, like, how do you identify people? And that's sort of our thing, where it's like, we realize this is some of the things that we need for our team to work really well, just because this is how we're made up. But the culture fit always is a curious thing to me. How do you guys actually start to understand a person and get through the resume interview process to try and dig deeper and say, what is this person like and how will they be a good culture fit?
So I'm gonna start this, or start my answer, talking about the remote perspective on that. And because we weren't a remote organization before, we had a 5,000 square foot office. That's a big part of how we were able to integrate was food, right? People would have lunch together, they go for coffee together, pizza, we ate together, and spending quality time generates really great relationships. February, March 2020, things changed.
Yeah.
And for us, they changed significantly, because at the time we were also in the start of about a 3-year talent crunch when it came to technology. And so we started saying, well, if we can't find talent locally, how can we build better relationships in other places to be able to harness awesome talent? And so we started on that venture. And now while we have clients across the US and Canada, we've got employees who live in Victoria, Vancouver, Penticton, Edmonton, Calgary, Airdrie, Winnipeg, Barrie, Toronto. There's some other cities in there too. We've got folks who live all over the place, and we've had to really invest in maintaining that remote culture very, very carefully. But if we start at the very beginning, in terms of that, we'll say integration process that happens before somebody even gets hired, we have to look at what I call kind of the operating system in which we're living, and that's our core values. Now, we have a very specific purpose as an organization, and that purpose doesn't resonate with everybody. We exist to create a positive transformative impact with our clients, and for some people, that nature of transformation and that nature of positive is not in alignment with their personal purpose, and that is okay. We want to make sure that we are identifying people who fit within that kind of perspective as early as possible, so that we're not wasting their time. Mm-hmm. And not everybody's a fit. And the way we're able to figure that out is through our core values. And we test against our core values through the questions that we ask. We have 6 core values. It's a bit of a story arc, we'll call it. It starts with showing up. We show up and we take risks and we ship product. It's really all about agility. The next step is we open up together. That helps us understand that we're all unique. That nature of inclusivity helps us solve really great problems really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. We're able to team up, as we found. We know that we're stronger together. And so that nature of partnership becomes such an incredibly powerful tool to be able to understand the nature of risk in terms of building great product. We also have found that while it should be table stakes, the nature of integrity is so important for what we do, because we ask our folks to stand up and do the right thing, even when nobody's watching. So much stuff is hidden these days when you're working remote, so that trust component is important. Yep. But the 2 components that I think are probably what makes a punch cardigan is we step up and make an impact, so ownership, and then we level up and we work towards mastering a craft, mastery. Ownership and mastery, to me, are 2 sides of the same coin, and I can tell if somebody is pursuing a lifetime of mastery versus just handling a vocation. To me, this is all about, and we talked about the early days of the web. Nobody needs me writing HTML anymore, but nobody would be writing HTML in the way that they were back in the year 99 or the year 2000. Yeah. Things have changed so significantly, and we have to be always learning. always adapting, always growing when it comes to our tool set. The easiest question that I ask that identifies people who are on that pursuit of mastery is, what are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you learning right now? And if somebody is excited about learning, excited about adding to their toolkit, they answer right away. They know exactly what to say. But
Yeah.
somebody who isn't in that pursuit of mastery often can't answer it.
Yeah.
It's simple, it's so simple, but also aligns with where we're going as an organization. And actually, I think where we have to be going as an ecosystem, because change is happening and we have to harness it as much as possible.
First of all, I'm going to steal that tactic because I think it's brilliant to be able to to dial in on. Sometimes a specific question can unlock so much. And a friend of mine, I know I asked him one day, he just seems to just hire really, really well. And I just said, you hire people, they stick around for forever, or for the just for a real length of time. And they just seem to love working for you. And how do you find those people? And he just said, well, it's really quite simple. I just ask them, what do they do outside of work and school? Because a lot of them are students that work through his business. And that's it. And he just basically, like you're saying, like he talks to them about, and they should, that's the thing that he's looking for, is they're doing something interesting and they're excited about it and they're learning, and it's not, well, not much, I don't have time. It's like, no, like I kayak competitively, whatever. And they're excited about something. And that's how he finds people that are passionate about doing. They get up and go. They're excited. They're learning. And it was just interesting because it felt like, yeah, it's pretty simple, but it worked. It was like, that's a great sort of thing to do, right?
Well, and I mean, okay, so like I love working, right? Like I love being productive. I like creating things. I like building stuff. But finding balance, right? So being able to understand that, hey, we are all people, and people have interests and hobbies and families and pains and gains in other places other than the workplace.
Yeah.
We actually have, as business owners, we actually have to not only recognize that, but we also have to create space for that to be part of the conversation. Work-life balance isn't just work-life balance; it's just balance. And when we find balanced people, we're able to create balanced teams. But like without balance, I can guarantee that the culture of an organization ends up skewing in one way or another. And over time, that begins to, like any machine, right? When something is off balance, you create a point of friction. And then that point of friction becomes more and more significant. And then you have an engine that fails. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody is in balance all the time. I think that's the wonderful thing about teams, is that unlike a mechanical system, the organic system of a team can actually support when people are out of balance. And when people have trust and respect of their coworkers and of their team, they let each other know when they're out of balance. And that's how you create longevity within a team and within an organization. I'm really lucky that way. We've got a team that cares very, very deeply about each other. They look out for each other. They've got each other's backs. And I think that's what drives our best-in-class retention and our ability to be able to be sustainable when it comes to the work that we do. We don't work overtime in our organization. People are pretty fastidious about making sure that we find that balance, and they hold each other to account. Otherwise, the machine breaks down, and everybody is affected by machine failure, not just an individual.
Yeah. That's going back to my agency days. It was interesting because we were sort of unique in that space as well, as like, we don't do overtime. Like there was, the once a year, oh shit, we've got it. But
yeah, you got to push, sure.
But there's businesses that live to drive and push people and do overtime, and we were the opposite, just like you. It's like, no, we need to come in fresh, like work your ass off during the day so that you can go and you can enjoy your night and you can enjoy your weekend and you do cool stuff and you come back and you're you've got energy, and and it's something that we do at Dryrun. Like we might be a tech startup right from the start. It's not this. I cringe when I hear other startup founders, even in the tech space. It's like, if you're not doing 80 hours a week, you're like, and I'm like, bullshit. If you're doing 80 hours a week, you're doing 30 of them are productive and the rest is bullshit, because you can't sustain that at all. And you're putting value on a number, and all you're doing is creating probably problems and errors the entire time. And and so our philosophy has always been like, when you put the time in, it's productive and you drive, and then you take that time and off, and it recharges your mind and your brain and your body.
I think you're right. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, if these are all systems work, there's a homeostasis that exists for systems when they are, I will call them, at their optimum. As people, we don't have an unlimited amount of energy, right? We need to strive for that balance. And I mean, we're talking about a knowledge work outputs right here, right? So at the end of the day, if people are burnt out, they're not writing good code, they're not building good product, they're not meeting needs of our customers. And so as organizational leaders, as an organizational leader, I'm striving to make sure that, are we creating the right balance for the people on our team? Are they happy? Are they satisfied with their work? Are they satisfied with the relationships that they are maintaining? Because that's how we go long. I mean, there's a proverb: if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think it's worth it to go far, right? I mean, we get to see so much landscape when we go the distance. If we go short bursts, I mean, and don't get me wrong, we engage in sprints on the work that we do, but we also have to be mindful that you can't sprint forever. You have to balance your sprints with rest, with reflection, with retrospective, before you can start the new one. You have to amp up and amp down just as much. And so caring for the balance of the team becomes a really valuable regular work for I think the modern CEO. Now, if there's no people in your business, perhaps this isn't an important component. But for folks who have people-oriented work, it is critical to make sure that we're thinking about that balance.
Well, and I found over and over again, and I know it's likely the same with our team, the answers usually come when I'm off doing something else. And I think the subconscious is a very, very, very powerful thing. And I find when you're if you're sitting at a desk trying to find the answer, it's all your conscious mind trying to do it. And then I'll tell you, I'll hop on my bike and I'll be a mile down the road, and also I'm like, oh, there's the answer. Like, because the subconscious starts, as soon as you relax and you're doing something else, I find a lot of those bigger picture, higher level answers pop into your mind. And so there's value to not only just rest. It's like, I actually think that rest and that having your mind somewhere else leads to significant steps forward. And maybe that's a weird idea, but I think it works.
Well, okay. So, I'll start by saying I absolutely agree. We have a young daughter, so I don't get to engage in all my hobbies all the time. But like you, I like woodworking. I like using my hands. I like using my brain just as much as well. But I do think that those differences, right? I mean, it's the contrast that gives us the context to be able to solve really interesting problems. And that being said, while I'm parenting, that's a different type of break as well. When we put ourselves in different situations, we are adding to our encyclopedia, and it's giving different parts of our system the opportunity to be able to engage. And I think, I mean, this is commonplace understanding now. Like, when we're thinking about exercise, the rest days are arguably as important as the exercise. It's those rest days that actually create the gains, not the exercise. So as we think about that for our organizations, we have to program rest in the organization to allow it to scale, to allow it to grow, to allow it to find the bulk that it needs to be able to go a further distance.
Yeah.
The more we invest there, the more we realize that these systems are all interconnected as well. So there isn't a good hire over here and a bad hire over here that don't interact. They all affect each other. And that's why it becomes so important for us to identify the really great talent even before we insert them into the organization, because it is all connected. And well, we don't have the luxury of thinking otherwise.
Yeah. I want to take a little bit of a different direction here, because we've talked about how you've built this organization, how the importance of team, the importance of, but I want to flip it around and say the difference of when you started your business in 2000, or the difference when you were starting to build product that maybe the timing wasn't quite right. Now you've got 46 mouths to feed. How do you, because I know you guys are, like, you continue to evolve, you continue to grow. You guys are really driving forward and doing really well. But how do you continue to feed the engine, even from a growth perspective and a sales perspective?
I'm taking a moment to think about that, because it is not so simple as one thing, right? Yeah. 2024 Sam has the benefit of all these years of mistakes and successes and conversations like this, mentorship opportunities, coaching, toes stubbed, right? I think, well, I just didn't realize the value of wisdom. And I think I am, again, gratitude has been rattling around for me for the past while. I'm so grateful for the experiences that I've had that have helped me get to this point. Now, a number of years ago, I had just joined the board of an arts organization, and we were doing some strategic planning around innovation for the org. And we were away at an offsite, and we had a consultant from New York who worked with arts organizations through kind of innovative processes. And her name was Melissa Dribble. And Melissa said, she had this phrase, and I've adopted as one of my own mantras: small experiments with radical intent. Her perspective was, big change doesn't happen overnight, but we can experiment constantly. And those small experiments, when we add them up, create incredible gains for the organization. Now, that doesn't mean that we are always in a state of experimentation. I think there are some times when we have a little bit more energy, and there's times when we don't. So we have to be mindful of that within our organizations. But I think Punchcard is at where it's at today, because we are in this state of perpetual motion. We are constantly testing what's working and communicating about it, involving people on the team. And if it's not working, well, then we should change it. Because it goes back to that engine failure. The friction is actually what creates negative outcomes for the organization. Now, we also are a lot better now at planning than we were at the beginning of the organization. And certainly at the beginning of Wellnext, and absolutely at the beginning of my agency back in the year 2000. Now, that doesn't mean that we build a plan that's 28 pages long and we have to follow it. Many of our plans have the flexibility to experiment, to be able to work forward. And so we look at things on a quarterly, annual, and a longer term basis when it comes to our long-term vision. And we discuss it constantly, just like our core values. These are the tools that we have to be able to experiment readily. And the more experimentation we do, what I find is the happier that everybody is, because it's the signal to the organization that we are not perfect. We are not all knowing. And when we can embrace the nature of learning, or mastery for that matter, we can do better. I often think, as managing partner and as CEO of this organization, I'm actually the primary product manager for the organization, and our product is the organization. And so applying really great principles in design thinking, really great principles in product-led design and user experience for that matter, we can build a better product. Now, our customers are our employees as well as our customers, I suppose. But at the end of the day, the more people who love to use our product, the better we are as an organization, the stronger we can go, the farther we can go. I didn't realize that when we were little, or when I
Yeah.
was, when we were younger. I thought, well, we just do good work, and people will continue to do work with good people.
Mhm.
With 46 mouths to feed, our plan is to get to 65, 70 people at the end of this year as a part of our plan. We cannot be accidental in how we plan and how we operate. And so
Mhm.
those experiments have now moved from um, a little bit lighter weight to ones that have a little bit more structure,
Yeah.
because we have more to lose. Now, that being said, as a way to be able to keep the organization safe, we've also spent a lot of time thinking about how do we finance the organization? How do we make sure that we are actually using cash as a tool to be able to reduce all risk? And
Mhm.
so, this comes through how we manage our cash flow really, really aggressively, how we get our customers to pay, how we structure our work so that we are as close to the point at which we spend the money
Mhm.
as to when we earn it. Because at the end of the day, I know that as an organization that was 4 people all the way to 46 people, our cash and our cash flow is actually what makes us stable, sustainable, here for the long term.
Mhm.
It also gives us the opportunity to invest in the future.
Yeah.
And that is critical. So, I mean, we do some really simple stuff. Um, we take early payments for many of our customers, and we discount it, but then
Mhm.
we use that cash on hand to be able to fund the growth of the organization. And for us, that has made the difference between knowing when we should hire a salesperson to when we should spin up a new team. And it gives us the chance to be ahead of the decisions before they need to happen. And the
Mhm.
more insight we give to our team, the more foresight we give to our team when it comes to planning, the better we all do.
Yeah. I find it like it's interesting because you're a service business, of course. Us, we're kind of a tech, sort of in a lot of ways, still the startup and finding our way. And we sell to different groups and all this, but there's so much that you said that just rings so true with me and with our team. Um, because we're constantly doing the same thing. It's just this level of experimentation and understand, like, and learning from the results and having some, honestly, a bunch of hard, expensive lessons along the way. But the hard,
Yeah.
expensive lessons is where you move from knowing or being told to truly understanding. And once you truly understand, it's like, oh, okay. Like I kind of knew that, or I was told that, but now I know, like now I understand, I can prioritize, I can focus because I can take away, because you know a bunch of stuff, right? It's truly understanding that, like you said, the wisdom. That's why I found it was really interesting. Wisdom comes from like a bunch of getting kicked in the teeth 1,000 times, right? And it's that understanding where it's like, okay, now I know what are the drivers, where to focus, and the one of the things that rings through my head, one of our advisors one time just said, like, just do it right, not fast. Because there's always this, oh, we got it, you got it. No, just cool it, test it, figure it out, take your next step, do it right. It'll pay dividends, right? Um, just like you said, you're grateful for some of the hard lessons. um
Mm-hmm.
I am grateful for them, but also there's a lot where I'm like, man, that was a tough one. Like,
No,
yeah, it
yeah.
was, but
I mean, I'm grateful for it. Do I wish that I could have downloaded them like Neo in the Matrix? Yeah, absolutely. Right.
yeah.
I think this is the nature of growth and personal growth as well as organizational growth for that matter. Um, it it would be easier not to learn, but it's more valuable to do so, right? I mean, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, those toes stubbed, and both the less expensive and the very expensive learnings
Yes.
that have come along. I joke that I've probably I have a very expensive MBA that cost way more than getting one at university.
Yeah.
But I feel so lucky that I get to go on this journey of entrepreneurship. I
Yeah.
couldn't do anything else. I because I think I might be wired for this, or at least I've been rewired for it over the course of the past decade and a bit.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe that has a lot to do with my personal core values. Maybe that has a lot to do with the ecosystem that we get to live in. But I love getting to take those risks, and I love getting to take those learnings and make them better the next time. If you had asked me the same question in 2012, completely different answer. I don't think I would have said, "Oh, I'm really looking forward to making those mistakes along the way." Um, I've earned them, just like you have, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and they're only yours, and they're only mine. And I mean, that's Oscar Wilde said, "What is it? Experience is the name we give to our mistakes." Um, I'm proud to have the experience that I have. I'm a little bit nervous about the experiences that I'll get to have in the future, right? A bigger organization or a scaling organization or a scaled up organization has a bigger set of risks and responsibilities. And I take that really seriously. Like you said, 46 mouths to feed, 46 mouths directly, coupled with everybody's families, coupled with their mortgages, coupled with, the responsibilities that they have as members of our society. As a business driver, as a business owner, um, I don't take that lightly. That's what keeps me up at night. Nothing else. I mean, that's the thing that is in the back of my head all the time.
Yeah, that's the shared experience amongst entrepreneurs, right? And very few of us would ever do anything else, but
Yeah,
you carry a lot of weight, and it's just part of the journey, I guess. Um, this was just an unbelievable conversation, Sam. I enjoy our chats so much, and I'm looking forward to our future chats. No, we won't record them all, but I just value them so much. And this is one of those episodes where there's times where I forget we're recording, where I'm just chatting and it's interesting, and then I'm like, that was really like I'm some of the questions I'm asking, I'm not selfishly, but I'm learning from it. I'm sucking it in and going like, this is so great. So this was such an enjoyable conversation. I really appreciate it.
yeah. I mean, every time that you and I talk, we don't always get to have a structured conversation like today. So, it's fun getting to unpack some of these experiences, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I don't often take stock of, oh yeah, we've come along this distance for a while, and I value that you and I have been friends for a big part of that period. So, I'm grateful to get to talk about it.
And next time over a beer. So
That's right.
thanks so much for being on the show. How can people track you down, find you if they want to learn about Punchcard, just chat with you, learn about you?
Yeah. So a couple different places. Um, we post a lot of content to LinkedIn these days. So on LinkedIn, Sam Jenkins. You can visit our website at www.punchcard.io. And on all the social medias, we're at Go Punchcard.
Terrific. And so thanks, everyone. Join us for the next episode. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you follow us. And again, I'm Blaine with Dryrun. If you're looking for a way to look into the future of your business, model scenarios, understand exactly what's happening in your cash flow, and even build those budgets and roll ups and all that complicated stuff, you guys are killing yourself in a spreadsheet, just come and see us at dryrun.com and we'll help you out.